Hollow Creek was a village built on secrets. Nestled beside the Whispering Woods, its inhabitants lived simple lives. They farmed the land and traded with neighbouring villages, yet a shadow hung over Hollow Creek, a fear whispered from parent to child. It was the legend of the Whispering Woods. The woods were said to be alive. They held ancient magic, both beautiful and terrible. The villagers spoke of whispers that echoed among the trees after dark, whispers that promised wonders and whispered nightmares. They spoke of those who ventured in and were never seen again. Generations had passed since anyone dared to enter the woods after sunset. The villagers kept to their homes, their windows shuttered tight. But legends have a way of attracting those brave or foolish enough to ignore them. And in Hollow Creek, that someone was Elara. Elara was different. Unlike the other children, she wasn't afraid of the stories. The whispers, so terrifying to others, sparked a fire in her imagination. She longed to know their secrets, to see for herself the magic the woods held. Elara was 10 years old, small for her age, but with a spirit that burned bright. Her eyes, the colour of the summer sky, held a wisdom beyond her years. She devoured stories of adventure, her head filled with heroes and mythical beasts. The Whispering Woods, she believed, held its own kind of magic, a story waiting to be discovered. One day, unable to resist the allure any longer, Elara made a decision. She would go into the woods. She wouldn't tell anyone, not even her best friend, Thomas. He wouldn't understand. He, like the others, was afraid. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across Hollow Creek, Elara slipped out of her house. Her heart pounded with a mixture of fear and excitement. She didn't look back. She was determined to uncover the truth behind the whispers. She was going to the Whispering Woods. The air grew cooler as Elara entered the woods. The sun, now a sliver on the horizon, cast long dancing shadows between the trees. The familiar scents of pine and earth filled her nostrils, but there was something else too. A faint, sweet smell that tickled her nose, like overripe fruit. The woods were different than Elara imagined. Not the dark, menacing place of village lore, but beautiful, almost welcoming. The trees, ancient and gnarled, seemed to reach for the fading light, their leaves painted in hues of orange and gold. She walked deeper, the last rays of sun warming her face. A sense of peace settled over Elara. The whispers, she realized, weren't so frightening after all. They were soft, melodic even, like the rustling of leaves in the wind. She closed her eyes, letting the sounds wash over her. For a moment she forgot her fear, lost in the beauty of the woods. But the sun was setting fast, and with the approaching darkness, the whispers began to change. The shadows grew longer, twisting into grotesque shapes that danced at the edge of Elara's vision. The whispers, once soft and melodic, became more distinct. They seemed to come from all around her, echoing off the trees, whispering her name. Elara, Elara. The voices were no longer gentle. They were insistent, demanding, pulling her deeper into the woods. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through Elara's earlier wonder. She wanted to turn back, to run towards the safety of the village. But something held her rooted to the spot. The sweet scent that had greeted her at the edge of the woods was overpowering now, cloying and thick. It made her head spin. She stumbled forward, her hand outstretched, brushing against something cold and rough. Tree bark. But this bark felt different, pulsing with a strange energy that made her skin tingle. Elara opened her eyes, her breath catching in her throat. Standing before her, bathed in the fading light, was a tree unlike any other. It was impossibly large, its trunk thicker than any oak Elara had ever seen. Its branches, gnarled and twisted, seemed to claw at the twilight sky. But it was the face that held Elara captive, a face carved into the ancient bark of the tree. Two eyes, dark and hollow, stared down at her, filled with an ancient sorrow that pierced her soul. A mouth, frozen in a silent scream, seemed to whisper her name, even as the wind whipped through the trees. The sweet, cloying scent emanated from the tree, stronger now, suffocating her. Terror, raw and primal, surged through Elara. The whispers, the eyes, the sheer size of the tree, all pointed to a power beyond human comprehension. This was not a place for a young girl, no matter how brave. This was a place of ancient magic, of forgotten gods and whispered nightmares. Elara stumbled back, her foot catching on a root. She fell, landing hard on the forest floor. The whispers intensified, swirling around her like a vortex, their voices filled with a terrible glee. They had her now. There was no escape. Scrambling to her feet, Elara tried to run, but the whispers seemed to hold her back, their voices growing louder, more insistent. She looked back at the ancient tree, her heart pounding in her chest. The eyes in the bark followed her every move, their gaze burning into her soul. The whispers were all around her now, a cacophony of voices, some high-pitched, some guttural, all demanding her attention. They spoke of forgotten things, of ancient rituals and sacrifices made under the light of the moon. They promised her power, knowledge, a glimpse into the heart of the woods. But Elara knew better. These were the whispers of the woods, tempting her, trying to lure her deeper into their grasp. She had stumbled upon something ancient and powerful, something that should have remained hidden, and now it wanted her. With a surge of adrenaline, Elara broke free from the whisper's hold. She didn't look back. She didn't dare. She ran blindly, her lungs burning, her legs screaming for rest. But the image of the ancient tree, its eyes boring into her back, fueled her flight. Section 7. Flight Through Shadow. The woods were a maze of twisted branches and gnarled roots, illuminated only by the sliver of a crescent moon hanging in the sky. Shadows danced around Elara, taking on monstrous shapes that sent shivers down her spine. The whispers followed her, echoing off the trees, their voices filled with a cold fury. They were closer now, their words clear and sharp, like knives cutting through the night air. They taunted her, threatened her, promised her a fate worse than death if she didn't stop. But Elara didn't stop. She couldn't. Fear lent her strength she didn't know she possessed. She dodged between trees, her small body weaving through the undergrowth, her eyes constantly searching for a way out. The sounds of the village seemed impossibly far away, swallowed by the oppressive silence of the woods. Just when Elara thought she could run no more, a faint light flickered through the trees. Hope surged through her. The village! She was almost there. Section 8. The Long Run Home. With renewed determination, Elara pushed herself harder, her legs burning, her lungs screaming for air. The light grew brighter, the whispers fainter, until finally she burst out of the tree line and into the open field that bordered the village. She collapsed on the dew-covered grass, gasping for breath, her body racked with sobs. The village lights twinkled in the distance, a beacon of safety and warmth. She had escaped the clutches of the whispering woods, but the experience had changed her. As she lay there, catching her breath, Elara could still feel the eyes of the ancient tree on her back, even from this distance. The whispers still echoed in her ears, fainter now but ever present, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the safety of the village. Slowly, painfully, Elara pulled herself to her feet. She was covered in scratches, her clothes torn, her hair matted with leaves and dirt. But she was alive. She had looked into the heart of the whispering woods and survived. Section 9. A Changed Heart. The journey back to the village was a blur. Elara stumbled through the darkness, her mind racing, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't know how long she had been gone, but it felt like an eternity. Reaching her house, she slipped inside, her movements stiff and sore. Her parents were asleep, unaware of the terror their daughter had experienced. Elara crept into her bed, her body trembling with exhaustion and fear. Sleep, when it finally came, was filled with nightmares. The ancient tree, its eyes burning into her soul, the whispers swirling around her, pulling her back into the darkness. She woke with a start, bathed in sweat, her heart pounding in her chest. The sun was streaming through her window, painting her room in a warm glow. The village was alive with the sounds of everyday life. But for Elara, things were different. The whispering woods had claimed a part of her, a part she knew she would never get back. Section 10. The Woods. Remember. Elara never spoke of her encounter in the woods. She knew no one would believe her. They would think she had imagined it, a child's nightmare. But she knew better. She had seen the truth in the ancient tree's eyes, heard the whisper's promises and threats. She kept her distance from the woods, her childhood fascination replaced by a deep, abiding fear. She no longer found solace in the stories. The whispers that once called to her now sent shivers down her spine. Life in Hollow Creek returned to normal. The villagers went about their daily routines, their fear of the whispering woods dulled by time and routine. But Elara knew better. The woods never forgot. And the ancient tree, with its haunting eyes and silent scream, was always watching, waiting for the next curious soul to wander too close, waiting for the next heart to claim.